YouTube. 13 minutes to 8. Give you a quick look at the sky. There is rain forecast today. That's the eastern side of the sky. Now the western side of the sky is fairly clean. And I'm casting a shadow with sun through high light haze, alto cirrus. Next door neighbour's solar panels have got shade on them. And I thought I might do a little bit of, well, we call it bore watching. Some obsessive compulsive hillbilly calibrated the tank. So there we have 2,500 litres the first day. Probably about 4,000, 5,000 litres the next day. And we're up to 11,500 litres as of yesterday. That's where the water level was at 4 o'clock. At 4:15 the pump was sucking bubbles, so I switched it off. At 5 o'clock I switched the pump on. Now that's 5 o'clock daylight savings time. It's actually 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. There was 2.5 amps at 210 volts. The motor was going, there was no inflow up here at the tank, so I switched the panels off. And the Sharpie means that I can leave that information there and go back to my place, and if my neighbour had showed up first, he would know what I saw here yesterday. Old mate's a little bit worried that early in the morning, like he was thinking that 8 o'clock daylight saving time was 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. He was thinking some of these trees here might have to go because, golly gosh, they're shading the panels at 8 o'clock in the morning. Trouble is, right at the moment, it's not 8 minutes to 8. It's 8 minutes to 7 because of daylight plastic stuffing around telling lies to your clock saving time. And in fact, the sun is on the panels, the tree shade is not on the panels at 7 minutes to 8. Ask the Guru Guru Gara Gara, the Kookaburra. There is the shade of the tree, there is the panels in the sun, with a pretty good coating of dew all over them, because the sun has only just got on them. And they're nice and cold. So at that low angle, let's just see how much power they're making. Now they're rated at 32 volts. Their open circuit voltage is 39 volts. At the moment, they're switched off. Now, here we have the positive and the negative wires coming into the PV array isolator. And these are the positive and the negative wires that come over into the computer which controls the pump. Yeah, all making sense there? So, if I get on around those with a clamp meter, zero it, put it on there, 0.05 of an amp, which is probably a meter reading error. However, if I push that on and it turns on, put that around there, 3 amps, okay? 2 minutes to 8, 3 amps times 210 volts, which is probably the operating voltage of this thing when it's under load. So you've got 620 watts, which is not a horsepower. Not a horsepower, so there's nothing in the way of noises coming from the pump, even when I put my ear right down to it. So we write down that observation. And we teleport. Damn it, I said teleport. And now, we have water. Because if I was down there with the clamp meter right now, the reading would be more than 3.8 amps at 210 volts, because that's where you get the magic 746 watts, which is a horsepower worth of electricity, and it takes a horsepower worth of electricity to make the current, well, to make the torque to drive the pump to push the water from 93 metres under that bore up here to the top of the hill, to the tank's inflow pipe. And now, kind of a competition between how fast the sun can rise and how quickly the clouds can approach as to see the little swamp wallaby in the Cuttawong. Whether the clouds will overcome the solar panels and cut the power, or whether the bore will run out of the water. Because one of the things we fairly rapidly established is the fact that you start pumping and you get 1,500 litres in an hour, and then you start to hear bubbles as the pump is sucking air, and then around about 2,000 the pump runs dry, and then you have to wait for the bore to refill. And we've also kind of got a bit of a guesstimation, which leads us to suspect that it fills at, well, probably 20 litres an hour when it's just about to stop the pump, whereas it might be filling at 30 litres an hour, 35 litres an hour, when the bore is sort of full of water and you've got a lot of water in the rocks close to the bore, and maybe the whole of the 6 metres of aquifer has got water coming out of the entire 6 metres of the wall of the bore. Whereas after an hour, when you've pumped it down a fair bit, your recovery rate goes down. And what's going on now is that it's stopped pumping because we are completely in the shade of a slightly thicker part of that cloud. That is enough cloud going in front of the sun to drop the solar panel output below 746 watts. And when you've got less than a horsepower, the computer shuts the pump off. We know that because we were just down there and we saw 630 watts was coming out of the panels and the motor wasn't running. Walk up the top of the hill, sun gets higher in the sky, and voila, bingo, it starts to happen. There we go. After only a couple of minutes, and the water is now pump-a-king again. And as the sunlight becomes stronger, the water flow gets stronger, and instead of trickling down the walls of the corrugations on the tank, it actually carries on in a bit of a ballistic trajectory away from the wall and piddles into the surface. So on the basis of yesterday's observations, I drew this little chart for old mate to show him kind of what he can expect. This thing's probably going to get a mechanical timer, 1 hour on, 1 hour off. My micro SD card's full, so the video's over. Ciao!